Hello and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance. Of course, I'm your host Clay, and with me is not Katie, which I have gotten confirmation that she is making an attempt to come back into the show next week from her maternity leave. So, really glad that she will be back on the show. It has been so hard just sitting here and ranting all by myself with nobody to talk to. But of course, last week we had Adrian. Adrian is here with us this week. Adrian, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. I've been waiting for this episode just like I was last week, so I'm really excited to be able to talk about it with people. And again, not just talk to myself and my dogs about it all day. So very excited.
And then we are joined by a third. Georgie is here as well. Georgie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? My name is Georgie. I'm a film journalist, and yeah, I saw these episodes a little while ago, about a month ago, and I've been dying to talk to anybody about them. So I'm really excited to be here.
I am super jealous of you guys. Katie had the opportunity for the Bad Batch season 2 to watch the first half of the Bad Batch. Um, I have yet, like, the only thing that I have been able to do as far as any of that stuff is the High Republic books. We have been grateful enough on this podcast to be able to get those in advance. They've been great, but man, actually getting some like animation or live action media to be able to see beforehand would be so cool. But I am so glad. I think it was like the week of the premiere was when people were already starting to like, oh guys, watch out, be careful, there's spoilers out there, people are sharing things from the advanced screenings and stuff. So I'm so glad that I haven't been spoiled of anything. And from what I can remember, you guys have only seen up until this point. You have not seen episodes 5, 6, 7, or 8, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, at
All
the time we're
right.
sitting here, I'm caught up like everybody else. So, and I'm also super surprised that there were no spoilers either, because there was a lot of stuff that's happened in those first four episodes, and to see no spoilers is super great. So, I'm glad we gave
Yeah.
it to the right people.
Yeah. So uh usually how this goes is we go through the news, chit chat a little bit, and then go on to the review. There's really not a whole lot in the news this week. There was some small tidbits, of course. Something that I believe shown like the day after last week's show was Grammy Award winner and singer songwriter Victoria Monet has a new original song titled Power of Two, which is actually the end credit song moving forward in the episodes. Now, I do want to go back and see if they actually added it to episodes 1 and 2, because that I think that would be really cool.
Well,
Have
the
y'all had the chance
announcement.
to really watch or listen to the whole thing?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to like interrupt.
Oh
I
no, it's
I
okay. It's okay.
love that song. I like as soon as it was announced, I was like, "Let's go!" Because like the shows always have like orchestral stuff. They never really had like a song with like a singer before at the end. So I was so excited, and like the announcement says that it's going to be the end credit song for a future episode. So I'm really curious what's going to happen in that one when it comes out, and I'm kind of scared to find out what they're going to do to us emotionally when the time comes.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
I
does
mean,
say that.
quickly,
I didn't even
yeah.
notice that. It said that the song releases tomorrow, which was, of course,
Yeah.
that Friday, but they haven't released it in the end credits yet. You think it'll be the finale?
I have theories. I don't know
Based on the song, I hope not.
it's gonna be an episode where like something super serious happens. Because have you guys listened to the song yet? Have you had the chance?
Yeah,
I
it's
have not had the chance to
No.
listen to the whole thing.
So
I have listened to the snippet that was released on Twitter. Um, but
Yeah, the little
that's it.
montage they did. Oh
Yeah, the
god,
little
so
montage
good.
they
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
No, the whole song is very good and is very like on the nose with what is happening in the episode that it features in. So I hope it's not in the finale because it's not like a super happy song. So it's definitely very indicative of like the relationship that the twins are going through right now. So I imagine it'll probably be at like the big climax episode where we kind of have like the big showdown where the two of them are in front of each other and one of them has to make a choice when we don't really know which one will make which choice because they've both shown a little bit of that dark side, a little bit of that light side in them. So, well, I'm excited to see when it comes back up again, and I just want more. Give me more pop music or music in general. If we get
I
like
will
season
say,
2 and or some Latin vibes, sign me up.
Adrian,
Yes.
you already said something that's a little on the nose of what I'm going to be talking about today. The twins showing both good and bad intentions and things like that. So
Yeah.
that is a little bit of a topic of discussion over the internet right now. I want to know you guys' opinions, but we will get there. So yeah, that is basically it for the news. I think also, if I can go back, where is our Star Wars Alliance? There it is. Okay, so other than a lot of stuff that's been coming out because of this episode, a lot of conversations going on about certain characters, but that is it. So let's go ahead and jump into the episode. This, of course, is not a flashback episode like the ones previous. This is in real time. We are seeing everything that is happening. They are on the planet. Somebody remind me what the planet is called. This is the newer planet, the forest planet.
I'm awful with names. There's a lot of stuff in the brain, but
Yeah,
unless I hear the name over and over again,
but
Kevlar,
Yeah,
Kolar,
that sounds right.
something
I think
yeah,
something
yeah.
along those lines. You know the one where
But
Klenok is at. You know where
yeah,
we're going.
this is the one where Kalnaka is basically taking the Barrage vow, and he is there by himself. They go to apprehend him, or more so, they find out, hey, this is where the next target is. Of course, that being Kalnaka, and there is a ruse between some of the Jedi. Now, the way we see this scene, I can only assume that these could possibly just be like are members of the council because they do mention the higher council,
Yeah.
but not like. What do you guys think? Like, are these just Jedi Masters kind of planning some things out?
Go for it, Georgie. All you, bud.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel like I don't know if this is either like a council that's existing all the time, or if maybe this is just like a group that Vernestra put together. She's just like, here's our like little council so that we don't have to tell like the actual high council that's up in the tower, because then they have to like report to the Senate and everything. It feels just like it's like her way of keeping it secret, and I feel like it's like a team she just put together. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm
So
not super sure. It definitely seems like there's like a hierarchical thing going on like in this time. I mean, we already know that there's like a big hierarchical thing more so because we have like the Grand Master. It's Grand Master Yoda, not just Master Yoda. It's Grand Master Yoda. So we know that there's like this other higher thing. So I think this is just like a group of people who are in like the area that she's in that she probably trusts, is trying to get it together. I just like that she's being a little bit more lax with the rules because I was scared for my girl Vernestra because she turned into like a super cop and I didn't like it. I didn't like it
well,
too
I
much. I'm
mean,
glad that she's bending the rules a little bit.
is a little bit of a cop here. Like, we
Yeah,
were talking about that.
a little bit.
She was being a little bit of a cop here, and I'll be honest. Ever since we talked about it last week, it's kind of the like it's how I look at these group meetings now. It's just a whole bunch of cops.
Yeah.
But this is a very interesting conversation because the Jedi are, of course, looking at a holo of May, saying how skilled she is, how impressive she is for killing two other Jedi, how did she get this powerful? She must have been trained. Vernestra is like, from a Jedi, of course. Okay, what does that mean? Like, is like there's a huge discussion going on right now. Even that of in some of my group settings, people have this idea of what a Jedi and what a Sith is. To be a Jedi, you have to be in the Jedi Order. You have to be invited. You have to go through training. You have to be knighted. That's how you become a Jedi. Somebody with a lightsaber and force powers is not a Jedi. That's somebody who is able to construct a lightsaber on their own and uses the force. Same thing with all of these witches. They aren't Jedi. They just know how to use the force like any other person who is force sensitive. And when it comes to the Sith, this kind of goes into the controversy that we're going to talk about. The Sith, there has this grandiose idea of the Sith. Now, for everybody listening and or watching, the rule of two has only been mentioned, I believe, in the Clone Wars animated series by Darth Maul. He was the one that reiterated it to the audience whenever he was talking to his brother. And so that's why they attempted to kill Palpatine in order to become the Emperor of the Sith or whatever. And I don't know if there has been a definitive talk of the rule of two in live action. I do remember, I think it was either Yoda or Qui-Gon that when they first mentioned the Sith, there's like, oh, there's always two. That was kind of like the only inkling, but never like the definitive rule of two. We've never had that laid out to us as audience members, right? I did mention to a group of friends that the only laid out rule is in the Darth Bane trilogy, which is no longer canon. Those are Legends books. And Joe here in the chat, he says, not all dark side users are Sith. And this is something that I think a lot of people need to understand. Same thing with, and I have butted heads with my friend Travis on this idea of not the Acolytes, the Inquisitors. He's like, oh, the Inquisitors are Sith. I'm like, no, they're Inquisitors. They're a different title. They use dark side powers and they have red lightsabers, but they are not considered.
Yeah, do they ever? It's definitely like one of the biggest problems, especially right now with the show, is that they just never say Sith. Like they never call these, like everyone that these people call Sith, they never really call them Sith in the show. I think it speaks to like the headcanon stuff and the expectations and all that stuff is really just blown so out of proportion that it just makes it hard for like I think that crowd to take whatever happens on screen as like what is happening because they think I don't know I think that they think that like these characters are in the room with them watching the show. He's like, oh well, why doesn't he know about that? I was like, well, he doesn't know about that.
Yeah.
So why they don't really talk about this stuff? I mean, even the Sith code itself, like in this show, is probably the most it's been mentioned in canon, you know, and we haven't even gotten the whole thing recited yet. So it's definitely mysterious, just as the Jedi are just as mysterious in like A New Hope and in the original trilogy, where we don't know a whole lot about them, because history changes super fast in this universe, just like it does in our own.
Yeah, and in this meeting of the this council, this mini council with Vernestra and Soul, we get a cameo when we were told there were no big cameos. Now there is debate on whether this is a big cameo or not. Granted, if I were to ask somebody, hey, point to me, who is Coyote Mundi? Not a lot of people would get that answer correct. So I can understand that not being a huge cameo. If I were to say, hey, point to Yoda for me, I think they would be able to point out Yoda, you know? So this makes sense to a degree, this is another one of those controversial points. Cody Mundy, people are like, oh, I've finally seen some TikToks about it. I've seen it all over Twitter. People are freaking out. Cody Mundy was never born this early. That's what the argument is right now.
Yeah, it says some
And
random book.
and that's what it is.
But
Apparently, because again, I've only had so much reading knowledge from some legends. I'm reading them as they are being reprinted.
Yeah.
And I get most of my knowledge from, of course, my co-host Katie. She is the biggest Star Wars nerd that I know. And so I went ahead and texted her about 3 hours ago after finally seeing all of this complaining. I was like, okay, lay it down to me. Where is this whole like date thing? And she sends me this tweet from Star Wars Explained, and I love the tweet that Star Wars Explained said. It says Coyote Mundi only has a known birth date in Legends, and Saurians, I think, is the
Yeah.
species that he is.
That's how I would say it.
Saurians only have known lifespans in Legends. You know what else was in Legends? Witches. You can't nitpick about what you're going to be mad at.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. Now, I did joke around with a couple of friends of mine before episode 1 even aired. I was like, oh yeah, you know, they're just going to retcon a whole bunch of these lifespans of these species, and we'll probably see a lot of these characters in the new Rey Skywalker movie. And lo and behold, we have Coyote Mundi, a young Coyote Mundi, which, by the way, he's pink. When I saw him, I just thought that was another one of his species. You know?
Saurian, because
That's what I thought.
I don't think all aliens look the same, man. I thought that I was like, oh, another Saurian. And if you're familiar with Legends, you know that they're like almost extinct by the time we see them in the prequel trilogy. Like they're almost dead. Like this,
Right.
Gary Money has like 4 wives or whatever, right? Like this, it's a very special type of species. So to have them live longer, I think, is even cooler. Because like, all right, cool. Now this species might be going extinct, but you know, at least they live a long time.
Yeah, I think this is a very
got what
cool
Anakin didn't. He got to be married.
Yeah.
And that's what I was gonna say too, was that what happened?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Georgie.
because yeah, go ahead, Georgie. Go for it. All you.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that, like you guys mentioned, like that stuff is at the end of the day from Legends, and so if they saw a reason to like put Kiadi Mundi in here, like why not? You know, there's no like canon source that's told us that he's married, that they're extinct. Like they probably still believe that to be the case, but there's no like actual hardcore like canon source for his age. So I just feel like it kind of makes a little bit of sense as to why they would want to do that. I feel like some people are getting mad just to be mad because like you mentioned, I don't think that he's that big of a Star Wars character. Sure, Star Wars fans know him, but to like the average viewer, they're just like, "Oh, there's like another alien." Like, not that I speak for everyone, but I didn't even notice that was him. Like, I just thought that was another one. So I don't really think it's as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be. I think it's okay to obviously have an issue with it or have your opinions on it, but then there are the people that are taking it too far and harassing like Wikipedia, this and that. And that's kind of just where I land on it.
The harassment of Wikipedia has gotten a little out of control.
Yeah.
Wikipedia has given some screenshots online to Twitter to show what they are dealing with currently right now, and it is ridiculous. People need to calm down.
Yeah.
What people need to understand is that Legends is Legends. It is no longer a Legends timeline. This is a Disney canon timeline. So things are going to be set up. Things are going to be new. Joe also says, I like Acolyte so far, but I did think May's sudden shift in the last episode was a little strange and kind of weak writing. Joe, we will be talking about that very much so, because that is another controversial point of conversation in this episode. But real quick, back to this conversation, Georgia, you mentioned that there's a lot of people who are mad about Cody Mundy being there and everything else. A lot of people are pointing out to some of his dialogue in The Phantom Menace, saying, "Oh, we haven't seen Sith in a millennia or whatever," but he is
Right.
directly being connected to this secret mission here in this episode. And again, we go back to the conversation that we literally just had on the idea of what is a Sith and what is not. We don't know the end result of this conflict as of right now.
Yeah.
Is everybody going to get wiped out? Is there only going to be one survivor? Is there going to be survivors that don't even talk to these members of the Jedi Order? It's going to be a little weird. And one thing that me and Adrian talked about last week was the fact that throughout even the High Republic, we saw that there has been times where the Jedi kind of swept some things under the rug. Specifically, Adrian, you mentioned even the events of this show. The fact that Master Torben probably got in a huge conflict, we'll probably see later on in the season. Oh, well, you know what? How do we get rid of this? How does the bad press just go away? Oh,
yeah.
You are now master.
What do the Jedi do when everything goes bad? You just run away. You just run away. So I don't think it's anything too crazy. And I think that his position there, and the more that I talk about, 'cause I'll be honest, like I understand that he's there now. We have confirmation. It was in the credits. We understand all that stuff. But like you said, Georgie, the average fan isn't going to probably recognize them. I know my wife didn't recognize him, and she's in a lot of these pictures behind me. She's a very big Star Wars fan. But it's a character who has there's a YouTube video on it. Less than 3 minutes of screen time in the show. It's Cody Mundy, just him in the show for every scene that he's in. It's less than 3 minutes. So the average fan isn't going to know who this guy is. Yeah. I think also the fact that a lot of the Legends stuff that we have for him comes out in like 2008, right before we get the Clone Wars and everything like that. So all of that Legends stuff has basically been more or less kind of like washed out already before Disney even took over, because the Clone Wars came about. And I think that these people who are having that negative reaction to this are just looking for a way to have a negative reaction, because in my research, because I didn't know much about him either outside of what he's in the Clone Wars. I think that he's a very like Spock-X character without any of like the upside of like humanity, right? He's very calculated. Yeah. He's definitely like the actually guy, because every scene that he's in the movies is like, well, the Sith can't be here. And even in the Clone Wars, when Yoda's going with the Cosmic Force, he's like, no way the Yoda could talk to the Cosmic Force. That's only for the dead Jedi. He's taken over by the Sith. That's exactly what's going on. And he's a super smart guy, and his race is super smart. So everyone thinks that he's like this like Messiah, I guess, but he's like wrong almost every single time that we see him.
I would recommend, if anybody wants to see like a really quirky side of Coyote Mundy, read The Living Force. It's a little bit of a wacky book. It's a really fun one, but we see a different side of the Jedi Council in that book as well.
Yeah, because the Legends Mundy that they're like so married and dedicated to is the same Cody Mundy who has 7 wives and like 5 kids who he doesn't care about. Because he's so dedicated to the Force. He's that kind of Jedi who is starch on, look, I'll do this to save my species, but I don't care about them at all. To the point where like there's a panel in one of the comics where he's talking to Anakin, telling him about letting go. And he's like, dude, my whole family just died. Do you think that I am attached to them? No, I let it go because I am, a Jedi. Yeah. And that speaks to like the problem of the Jedi of the prequels, right? Because the prequel Jedi, I know that we think like, oh, it's the Jedi, but this is the end of the Jedi, like, and they're kind of downturn of the bell curve, right? So 100%. Of course, like they're going to be the Jedi who let this guy Sidious come up and be there, right? He's taught by Yoda, who was fooled, who was alive during this time period of the Acolyte. He's homies with Mace Windu, also fooled during this time. So this dude is already an example of like how bad the Jedi's hubris is going to affect the Council, even in the Acolyte. And I think that's specific for me anyway. That's specifically why he's there, because in the High Republic, we see Vanestra Rho, 12-year-old Jedi Knight prodigy, not not Anakin level, spontaneous, but is willing to, make some things work, to make some things happen, right? And then we see her 100 years later as a different kind of Jedi, one that's a little bit more on the prequel side. And I think having Mundy there is like that next step. Okay, so now this is like the more shady, more rigid. They think, oh, we got to go to the High Council. We got to do this stuff by the law, which is why that conversation happens away from him. I think it's very, very intentional. Leslie Headland was like very specific that this series is supposed to be the prequel to the prequels, basically, right? It's the fall of the Jedi in the prequels. How did we get there? And this is part of that. And we've been getting there, Clay, since the High Republic Phase 2, 400 years ago. We've been setting this stuff up for a while. So I don't think any of it's too crazy. And if anything, him being there lets them explore his thing in an actual comic now, just like they're doing with Planaka. We could see him being polyamorous. We can see him having a bunch of wives and how that is a detrimental to like him being a Jedi. And then I think finally what I'll mention, just because I did a bunch of research on it, I didn't know that he was the first actual Jedi Knight not to be master on the council. And guess what happened? They retconned it. They retconned it with the prequels. So this is how I know that they're not really mad about the fact that the age thing got retconned. They're just looking for something to be mad at. Because if you were really mad about it, you'd be mad and complaining. If you were this diehard about Mundy, you would be like, hey, but he was the actual first Jedi Knight of the council. They retconned that. George Lucas, where's your head type things, but it's not. So we actually kind of know why the backlash
was that from before Revenge of the Sith? That before Revenge of the Sith came out, he was the first one to not be a master?
Yeah, because it came out before, because at that 2008 period is like when a bunch of like the new comics and all those things are coming out. So it came out like right before Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith comes out, retcons that away, and then Anakin is the only one who's been on the council and not been a master before, because we got to make sure that Anakin's the first for everything.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up is that, I mean, like retconning, there's like a history to this. I mean, like with Andor, Cassian's age gets retconned. I believe the planet it said he was from is different now. And then to the point of like the quote in The Phantom Menace where he says like the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Like we don't know where this series is heading, so it's a little early to say that that's being contradicted yet. Like, what if he never finds out? What if they think like they defeated them and then so he's not on the High Council yet and they're like, okay, we don't need to tell them, let's keep it a secret. So then it's just a secret he's keeping that they killed the Sith or they think they did or something. And then also to your point about the fall of the Jedi, what I love about like the High Republic is how like phase 1 is kind of this idealistic, they're at their height, they're just like amazing, and I love that. Like that's kind of a version of the Jedi I love to see every now and then, just because it's like a form of like escapism. But then with like the Acolyte, we're seeing kind of like the midpoint between that and then the prequels version of them, because they're not quite as flawed as the prequels, but they're like getting there. You don't see it in every single one of them, but like with Yord, he's so like arrogant and just like, I love him so much, but he just has a lot of those prequel-ish things, and I feel like it's the perfect midpoint that's just like teetering us closer to where
I'm still very weird about his like good cop bad cop. Like he's like well, the conversation that he had with Osha in this episode, it's like
very Mace Windu.
He has those moments where it's like, okay, you were kind of soft there, but then like immediately after he's kind of harsh. It's like like the whole thing with the pistol. I'm like, dude, like just leave it alone. Like
it's like
I rewatched it right before I came on. I was like, it would be so funny if she just stunned him for fun, like when he's bothering her. Like, I don't know.
But so that gets us to where we're moving forward to. Soul talks to Vernestra and says, hey, let me do this. Let me get involved. And we actually have something May wants. And they plan to use Osha. But what I like about this is Soul is straight up to Osha. It's like, hey, they're not going to let me do this unless you join. And this is why. I am okay with this because even Osha is a bit hesitant on the whole thing, because she even talked to Jackie at the beginning of this episode and was like, hey, peace out. I'm out of here. My sister is y'all's problem. I tried what I did and it didn't work. And, it's just the way it's going to be. and she is kind of in this mode of like, yeah, you know, she killed people. She is going to get what's coming to her, and those are her consequences, you know, type of thing. Which is going to be really interesting in the future episodes because of what we have seen from May in this episode. I'm really curious about that, and I actually have questions for you guys later. But they go to this planet, they start to explore, they start to look for Kelnucka. They do have a tracker by the name of
Basil.
Basil. People were
Yeah.
freaking out about Basil too. Leave Basil alone. He's like he's a fun little like, hey, here's a kid's moment type of thing.
People were hating on Basil.
Wait. Yeah, that's what I
This
was
is
going to
news
say,
to me.
Georgie. I was like, what? You're hating on Basil?
Yeah, there's people that are complaining that like the Basil scene was a little too long with the introduction to Basil.
The episode's 30 minutes.
Yeah,
And I think that scene also shows like that direct hierarchy that we see, right? Because if you notice, Basil and her are in like the civilian uniforms, right?
Yeah.
You don't ever see that in the Skywalker saga with Jedi. They don't make
Mhm.
civilians just get in different uniforms. They're cops, dude. They're cops. Like
Yeah,
that's an important.
it's
I think
weird,
it's
man.
such an important scene, but it's also super cute, and it completes. You know, it's completing the trifecta of like cute, adorable characters in the Star Wars series. You know, you have Pip,
Yeah.
now you have Basil. We just need one more.
I just want to say that's so funny with the civilian uniforms because Osha is like, please don't put me in one, and then just straight up cuts to just like her.
The
They're
next
like,
scene is hers in one. I really dig that. But we go into the forest, we see very massive bugs. We start to see that Osha is starting to get her force sensitivity back up.
Yeah.
Of course, in the very first episode, we saw her attempt to use the force, and she didn't. She couldn't. Now we see her at least getting a little bit of sensitivity to it. So I think truly by the end of this season, we're going to see her do something. We also get the story of, or the side of the story of May and Chimere. They are on the planet as well. How do you guys feel? And I know, Adrian, you have this idea of no expectations because you learned your lesson in Ahsoka.
I came with one just specifically for this. Just for this.
So there is, I feel like they're doing it on purpose, which means it's a red herring 100%. But there's so many people that think that Chimere is the stranger, is the master. Georgie, let's go with you first since you're new here to the show. Do you think specifically that Chimere is the master?
the master, no, but I do think he's toothy. I think. Okay, so I saw these episodes
Oh
a
wait,
month
so
ago.
you think that there is somebody above the
Yeah,
other? Oh wow, I didn't
I
even think
think
about
so.
that.
So when I saw these a month ago, I binge watched all four. I was so excited. I ate so much hot Cheetos and pizza, and I was just like, this is amazing. And I was like, it's totally Chimera. I'm like, I cracked the code, just like eating my chips. And then like I kept thinking about it, and I was just like, I feel like that's a little like too like simple for it to be Chimera, and especially since he's there with all of them. Like I just feel like it's just a little too clear cut. And then so what I was thinking about was how like Dooku has Ventress and Savage, and then like in Legends, Vader had Starkiller and stuff. I was reminded of that when I saw like a Star Wars Explained their like recap of the episodes. They were talking about that, and that kind of like opened my mind up. I was like, yeah, I don't think it's Chimera because like with the Sith, how it's like the rule of two, and then the apprentice tries to take out the master or whatnot. Um, that's just kind of where I'm at. I think that there's someone above Toothy.
That's interesting. I never thought about somebody being above the stranger that we have been seeing in this season at all. So, Adrian, you said you had some sort of expectation. in this episode. So what does that
I
entail?
mean, not just necessarily in the episode, but like again, I've been sitting on this for over a month now, and I really haven't thought too much about it, just because I've been like looking to see what everyone else thinks, and everyone thought it was Chimera in the very first episode, right? So I think that's just like too easy for the caliber of director that Leslie Headland is, and the fact that she has been very, or the series itself has been very subverted like almost the entire time. Like I was super excited. Star Wars, if you're listening to this, I'm so upset at you for liking my tweet. I did a tweet that I was so excited to see Carrie Ann Moss in the Acolyte before I saw the screeners, and then after the cold open, she's gone, and I was like, oh well, this is why. This is why. So I think very early on, I was like, I'm not holding on to anybody. I learned from the High Republic. You don't fall in love with these characters because they can literally do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want because they're not really bound to anything here. So I think it just makes it so that they can really just do whatever they want. And I just think that'd be too easy. Just be too easy for someone like Leslie Headland, Russian Dolls, and then you have, the Get Out and Nope, musical composer. Like you just have too heavy of a cast to do something that simple. So I think it's just a red herring. It's just a subvert, just to keep the conversation going. I don't know who it is. I think that I don't think that Chimera is Darth Teeth. I don't know if Darth Teeth is the master or not. But I do think that whoever Darth Teeth is, or Darth Smiley, whoever you want to call him, until we figure out what his actual name is, I think he's there for May. I think he's upset that May.
Yes, I did see your tweet that said that.
Yeah, I think she's there. That person is there for the Jedi, or that person is not there for the Jedi. They're there for May, and the fact that the Jedi are there is just a coincidence because Chimera is like rushing her through rushing May through the forest trying to get it done. And I think that he just went real quick, gave a little slice, and then to try and kind of save a little bit of face for her, as he has been doing since her second kill, essentially, right? And even in a little bit of the first one, covering for her letting I think that whoever Darth Teeth has found out, he could be the master. I like your thing, Georgie, there, that Darth Teeth might be trying to train an acolyte to go off and do him, but maybe Chimera is just that good at hiding himself, just like Sidious was, and he is, actually, the Biff and not.
It's
not
interesting.
I had another thought about this.
Vegas.
You just reminded me, because also we were talking about the rule of two. And so what I was thinking was, if there's the master, then there's May and Chimera. I just feel like that gets a little like muddy, because like with the Sith being a secret, like having Chimera, and then Chimera mentions like, him, like he takes people in or something. And I just had me scratching my head, because I'm just like, then how many people know about this guy? So I kind of just feel like that's almost like a lie or something, and it keeps the circle tighter. That's why I don't really think that like Chimera is just really some outsider dude who knows about the master, just because the Sith are like a well-kept secret for so long. And I just wanted to add that in before I forget.
No, yeah. I think that's why it makes him. I think that's what makes Chimera probably more important than Darth Tooth or Darth Teeth, or he is them. Because even like when he pulls her, or when because we don't know if that could be a woman under there. But when they pull May towards her, it looks like her, like kind of like the same way that Chimera does when Chimera's like recognizing her for the first time and then throws her away. So I don't think that person has seen Osha before. I don't think she's ever seen Osha before. So I think had the same realization that Chimera had in episode 2 of like, oh, you do look just like her. You're not her. Throw you out of the way because I'm trying to get to actual May inside the house.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I said, they did a lot of red herrings. There was a lot of times where May was like, "Oh, well, have you ever, seen him directly?" And he would veer off in a different direction, literally, while changing the subject as well. So there was a lot of those moments. Okay, so there was a scene in this episode that I was genuinely confused at. So we see the Jedi are nearing Kalnucka's home, right? Mm-hmm. And then you hear a scream. You see the Jedi react, and then you see Chimera react. Now, the first time I saw this, I did not have subtitles on. And then you see Chimera run, get picked up by the trap, And then May is there. He's like, you know what? Hey, I'm switching sides. Peace out. I'm heading this way. Was that supposed to be May screaming? Because in the subtitles, it does say May is screaming. Did y'all get confused by that at all? Just wondering.
I thought it was just her like trying to get his attention to like catch him off guard. I didn't think twice
Okay.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to watch it again, but on my next watch, I'll definitely hit you in the DMs. But I think it was. I thought it was just her trying to get the
Okay, cool.
attention more than
So
anything.
here we are to the next controversy. And this one, I will be completely honest with, I'm a little worried about it. Now, again, we have plenty of episodes to convince people, hey, this is the way the story's going to go. But for me personally, I made a joke with Katie in the Tales of the Empire. I said, wow, these Inquisitors are really like the worst bet that Darth Vader and Palpatine have ever made, because either one, they're all dead, or two, they keep converting. And in the story, we saw even at a young age, these two sisters were butting heads. They were never really well
They were never
meshed, I
one.
guess. They were never one. Yes, exactly. And here, this flip, this dialogue of, oh, I am loyal to my sister, not to the master. I'm going to tell the Jedi everything. I'm going to turn myself in. And then she leaves to warn Master Kalnaka. I personally don't like this turn, because I personally don't necessarily like this new wave. And it's not just in Star Wars. I'm a big comic book fan. It's been happening a lot in comics also, where people who were always known as bad guys have recently started to be good guys. And I know there's been some writers out there that have been like, hey, we personally in the real world have gone through some really dark stuff. So why don't we keep things on the lighter side? And, some bad guys can do some good stuff. And that's totally fine. I like when the bad guys are forced to work with the good guys, but then, everything goes back to quote unquote normal later. Here, her switch to me was a little out of pocket. I understand that there was that connection at the end of episode 2 where they saw each other for the first time in 16 years. Osha shot the stunner and May just ran off. And she's like, holy crap, my sister is alive. I understand that can evoke a lot of emotions and make you rethink some things. But from the moment that happened to now, and mainly because last episode was the flashback episode, we haven't really seen or gotten any indication from May that that's what was on her mind. So that's why it's a little bit of a problem for me. Now, I am willing to eat my words when we get some sort of follow-up to this change, because a good friend of mine, Taylor Field over at the Geek First podcast, he mentioned something that I was literally thinking of earlier today. I went ahead and listened to the Geek First review. Do you guys think there is any possibility, and this is where I said, Adrian, that you had said something that was very interesting, that I was going to bring it back up. Do you guys think there is any indication that May could end up being the good guy and Osha end up being on the dark side?
Yeah, I think that's completely possible. I think it's completely possible, and I think it is shown in the way that May's face softened when she saw Osha. And I think seeing the flashback episode, I'm not sure if because May or because Osha has like had Jedi training and she knows the dangers of her attachment, if like now that she's free of that, she's definitely more into the anger part of what she's feeling. But when May sees Osha, there's definitely a softening there, and I would totally be okay with, because even in my review, I think that because we mentioned at the beginning of the song, I think that song is going to come back up again when one of them has to make a very tough choice, and we don't know if that's going to be Osha or May. If you want to go off of marketing alone, May's been on more posters, more of the promotional stuff is featured much more prominently, I think, than that we do with Osha's character. So I could definitely see her being the one. I'm hoping that they don't like team up against like the Thing, and we get like another a Rise of Skywalker. Not that I didn't like that. I would love to see something other than that happen
sure.
at the end. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm good with that. I'd be okay with seeing that turn. And I think just looking at May's face, I would just recommend people goes back to watch Amandla Stenberg's acting in that scene, where you can clearly see the difference in the way these sisters are looking at each other. So I don't think that sisters who thought each other were dead would be like, okay, I was doing all of this because my sister died and all of my family died. My sister's still alive. Maybe I don't have to do this anymore. Because I don't think anyone wants to go try and kill a Wookiee, not let alone a Wookiee Jedi. Like, what?
Yeah, I
Exactly. What
think
about you, Torchy?
yeah, well, first off, do we talk like theories? Because I have a lot of theories around this topic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
What do you think?
So first off, with like the whole like May shift in this episode, I feel like for her, like joining the dark side probably had a lot to do with thinking like her whole family was dead and like her sister was dead and stuff like that. And like we see with the Sith is they're just like master manipulators. So I could see whoever the master is, or like Toothy, right? Like using that to like feel her to want revenge against the Jedi, get revenge, like get justice, whatnot. And then as she sees her sister, like maybe she's realizing over time whether that was well done or not. I think the intention was just that she's processing it, and then she eventually is like, why am I
Yeah,
doing this? And then she just kind of
yeah.
like dips. um and then back onto the song, because I've been listening to it a lot, and there's the lyric of I feel the shame when they call me your name, and then she says, why work with myself if it's a losing game? And like just the way I'm thinking about it and the way Star Wars is, I just like, and you mentioned with like Osha not being on as many of the posters, we didn't really know about her till like the show came out. I'm kind of
Mhm.
like, I'm thinking she might not make it out of this encounter alive because of the way she gets thrown. And then in the next episode, I'm assuming because there's a shot in like the TV spots where like she's holding a knife to Jackie's throat. So I just feel like they're gonna fight or something, because we know that there's a girl fight coming. Leslie Headland has said that. So just like me kind of trying to put all the pieces together, I feel like something's gonna happen that somehow will push her darker. That's just kind of like where my head's at right now. And
Yeah,
with the
I'd be
song,
down.
I'm
I'd be
just
down.
convinced someone's dying. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
exactly. Like I don't want it to be the finale because that means someone's dying in the finale, and I need a little bit more resolution than that personally, because I think that we
Yeah,
haven't really talked about it too much. But my biggest problem and why I knocked this a little bit in my review is that, I mean, this episode that we're recording right now is longer than the episode that we were talking about. You know what I mean?
That's been
And
a
I think
big conversation. Also,
and I
is
just don't think they have any excuse not to. Disney specifically has no excuse. It's and I'm only mentioning it because it's something similar that I saw in the Percy Jackson show when I was reviewing it. The episodes are too short, and it doesn't give you any time to get through it. And I know that I saw something on X, Twitter, whatever, that the creators know this, that it looks like some stuff was probably cut, and they didn't really have enough time to develop
so
characters at the way that they want. So there's something missing here.
CK Keschel, I don't know who, the co-writer of the show, went to
Yeah.
Twitter to explain this. Somebody asked, I hope I don't sound rude, but if I may ask, are they mandating y'all to keep the episode short? Wish they were longer like other streamers. She wrote, we wrote this one and the next week's together, and they kind of had a total ballpark limit for the both of them. For
Mm.
reasons, in quotes, next week's had to be the longer one, so this one had to be kept short. So
Mm.
there
Yeah,
is a
that
little bit
makes
of a mandate
sense.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I mean, it
think
makes
with
sense because the
they should
first two
play
played off of
around.
each other. Just do
Yeah.
one episode, man. Just do one episode.
And
Throw
then
it in
she
one.
said, it's a killer, but that was the most natural place to end the episode. You'll see when the next
Yeah.
episode comes out next week.
I think they should play around with like dual episode drops sometimes.
Mhm.
Maybe not every time, but I feel like if these two were created with the intention of being one, maybe they should be dropped back to back. I don't know logistically how that works,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea because it's kind of the wait for it that makes this one harder. Because binging all four in one go, that was less of a problem for me just because it was like, okay, next, you know? But waiting for them as the show's been coming out, I'm like, oh, that's like it makes it really different when you can't
Yeah.
when they're not dropped together.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I love the conversation that happens after the episode, like the good positive conversation. You know, the theories, the memes, the Yord Horde, all that stuff is super great, and I'm thankful that it's not a streaming, just like a flat out, you know, full through release, because I don't think that Star Wars works like that a lot of the times. I mean, who's
Yeah.
still talking about Tales of the Empire or Visions, as great as those stories are? But I think you need to like build out the conversation. But I think you can do that without keeping your writers to having a 30-minute episode in a show that costs X amount of dollars, right? There's just really no excuse not to have the episodes longer. Because where are we going? Where are we going,
Yeah.
dude? You
And then
know?
when you factor in credits and the recap, it's honestly less than 30. It's like 20
Yeah, it's less
something.
than 30.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's pretty
somebody put it at
unacceptable, I
like
think.
27 something is the
Yeah,
full
pretty
runtime of this specific episode.
yeah, pretty unacceptable, I think, especially after coming off of a flashback episode where the only thing that really connects you back to that flashback episode are the writings on the wall in Klinaka's little, you know, abode that we didn't even really talk about. Really, the only thing that gets us back there is the fact that, and we don't even know what happened there. The Klinaka's clearly still obsessed with whatever happened that day. And he paid the price for it. And we haven't really talked about it yet, but I think even that whole scene has a whole thing to talk about, even from when we see him in the first part of the episode, and then when the chair is turned and we see that he's
that
slashed up.
he is Dunzo. He and like my second viewing, I was like, oh, maybe he was dead long after. But then I noticed the searing, the smoke from the actual gash in his chest. So it was a recent cut. I am curious.
So much, like, those are the theories, like, how did that happen?
For sure.
How'd you sneak up on a Wookiee Jedi?
It's very,
or
it's
did he
very
sneak
odd.
up? Was it somebody he knew? We talked about it last week, Clay, that this might be Mother Kira. Was that her name? The Zabrak Mother Witch. This could be her because she's kind of absent from the scours of bodies and things like that. She has a complete reason to also want all of these people dead, just like May does. She could have been the one to have rescued May all those years ago.
Coral is Mother Coral.
Mother Coral. Yeah, Mother Coral. So it could be someone that he knew, because we see in the end of the second episode that this isn't, a normal Wookiee. Like, Wookiees are scary in general, but this Wookiee can use the Force. And while he's like on a Barash Vow, he clearly still has connections to the Force. Master Saul senses the Tooth Jedi or Tooth Sithy from across. So what happened that Klinaka didn't hear? And we've also seen with Torben that Torben was fully ready to let it go and to die there. And Dar would rather save somebody else than save herself in face with this person that she knows what happened all those years ago. So if I think if I'm thinking about a theory that I would love to happen, is I would love to, whoever this person who killed Klinaka is, Klinaka knew them, and that's why it's so sudden, and he's just sitting there, and it wasn't like some Force slash, or unless like some super Force assassin person that we haven't seen yet, which would be cool. But I think it'd be much cooler for the story for it to be someone that Klinaka knew, just like all the other deaths.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mother Coral, you know how like we had the premiere and then the third episode was the flashback, and then these two are meant to be one long episode. I feel like the next one after that is going to be the other side to the flashback, and we'll get like the full story and then thrust us into the finale. That's kind of like what I'm thinking, and I'm kind of wondering if Mother Coral did make it out somehow, and maybe is she in league with whoever these Darksiders are, I could kind of see it because like we see like witches in league with the Sith all the time, like with
all
the
the
Night
time. Yeah.
Sisters.
Yeah,
So
Path of the Open Hand hates the Jedi. There's plenty of groups at this time who, or during like the High Republic area, that don't like the
Yeah.
Jedi, and we'd be down to see them come down a notch. So
Yeah, it's gonna be very, very interesting.
were you
And like
shocked
we
that
said,
they killed Klanaka at all? Because I saw it, and
I
I knew immediately people were going to be so upset that they
I
murdered him,
think
just like
I
it.
laughed because I knew people were gonna get upset.
Well, no, when I first saw it, like, because May runs into his house, and it's very horror. Like, it's like it's
yeah,
dark. There's a red hue, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no, like I saw the writing on the wall as soon as that one shot with May at the top of the stairs. I'm like, oh no, don't do this to me. Like this is the second Wookiee Jedi we've gotten in canon. Please don't do this. And the first Wookiee Jedi in live action. Don't do this to me. And when I saw that gash,
yeah,
it broke my heart. It broke my heart.
yeah. It's
Now again,
intentional. It's intentional.
I know that we're still going to be able to see him in flashbacks. And of course, we are getting the comic that is should be coming out fairly soon-ish, I think.
September with Kevin Scott.
Yeah, with Kevin Scott helming that. But like for me, I think it needs to happen, unfortunately, just because of this whole thing started with a mission. And I think that mission should be at the cusp of being completed in order for the entire story to complete.
Yeah, Jedi got to
Because
lose.
I think everything has to peak in order for it to kind of be settled for an eventual season 2, hopefully a season 2. So the only one left is Soul,
Yeah.
No,
and
I'll be sad.
the idea of Osha not making it out alive, like, it is an interesting concept. I also like the concept, like I said, that people are having of May and Osha switching sides. But I do think one of them has to die in order to set a precedent for what is coming in the future of Star Wars. Like, there is a darkness, and because of that darkness, there will be, some what's the word I'm looking for? Some casualties. So we'll see how all of that goes down. I am more interested on the outcome of that meeting with all the other Jedi. That's going to be like, oh crap, how do we hide this? Because Adrian, I told you, but Georgie, I have learned in this fandom, my villain origin story is finding out that Yoda is the worst of them all and hiding all of these different Jedi secrets and things that could have saved them in the future and things like that since the High Republic and stuff. And a friend of mine said, like, the way Vernestra was talking was like, hey, this needs to be on the down low. Like, this is the start. This is where the Jedi crumble.
Yeah,
And
if you don't trust the High Council, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem. You should be going like, hey, Yoda, hey, dude, go handle this guy, man.
Which is very interesting because, and this is a little bit of insight on the novels for people who are listening who haven't read any novels. Vernestra growing up was always by the book, but in times of trouble, she did kind of go off book because her fellow friends were like, hey, this is something that we can do because there's no adults around.
Exactly.
Was basically the reason. But in the most recent book, Temptations of the Force, things do take a change where Vernestra's like, hey, maybe we need to settle down and start looking at things differently. So we start to see Vernestra go into what will eventually be where she is at in the Acolyte. But I feel like there is something more that we have not seen yet. which I think we will eventually see in the High Republic Last Wave, that will get Vernestra to where she is today.
And to have
which
other
is why,
Jedi like Mundi to also be of that mind and less of the mind of like an Avar Chris or any of the
Elzar Man and things
Elzar
like
Man,
that.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
You know,
And I
my
know
girl Keith Trennis would not be acting like this. Is all I'm saying.
Oh no, no.
And I know like Rebecca Henderson has said that like we'll learn more about Vernestra's journey later. So I'm hoping either
Oh,
there's
sick.
like she'll have a monologue or something. Because I watched a ton of interviews and I just caught her
Nice.
mention something like that. So I want to know more because when watching these episodes again, I was like, no, what happened to her? Because she was like so perfect, and now she's like, let's keep it a secret. I was like, girl, I'm so disappointed in you right now. I was like a parent.
It's a lot, and I think that's like the bane. I think so I think this is a lot of the reason why we're able to interact with this media, and I wish that more people would. That we had this image of Venestra Rowe, and then she grew up and she was different, and that's okay because kids change in Star Wars. And I think that like back of the Mundi thing, it's like just this love for like the canon. That's the Legends material, and that's the only thing that could be, and people can't change, and we can only focus on the 67 years of space because that's the only thing that matters. But when we have stuff like Vernestra Rowe, I think it teaches you to be like, okay, things happen, characters change. Because I felt the same way with Holdo in The Last Jedi. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie, but one of the reasons is because Holdo is not the same kid she was in Leia Princess of
Alderaan.
Yeah, the Princess of Alderaan book, where we get to meet her as a kid, and she's definitely much more
That was so
happy-go-lucky.
awkward.
So it's definitely a crazy shift, a crazy jump. And for me, I couldn't on that one. I will admit, I couldn't put my book knowledge aside to get behind her. And that's what we're seeing with Vernestra Rowe. But I think it's important and it's intentional to show us like very clearly with characters how the Jedi are starting to be at the point where we see them in the prequels. And it just no one wants to see their faves, not be great. And there's a reason why the Jedi fell.
And this goes back to the conversation that we were having last week, Adrian, is like we saw the Jedi in the original trilogy and the beginnings of the prequel era as like the triumphant heroes and just the classic hero archetype. And now through just a different change of storytelling, we're seeing their flaws. We're seeing that they're not perfect. We're seeing character development. And it's not necessarily the character development that everybody loves, but it gets more in depth to the grander story. And that's what I love about it. And I implore everybody to look at it in that way. You could still love Luke Skywalker for being the greatest Jedi you ever think he is. That's cool. You still have that in the original trilogy. You still have all of that. We're seeing how Luke Skywalker got into this situation.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing
the thing with Luke.
Go ahead, Georgie.
Is that the thing with Luke is that like he's in an era where the Jedi have fallen. So how did they fall? This is the answer to that. And then he's picking up the pieces to be better than what they were. And these stories is what allows him to be the great epitome of a hero that he gets to be because he's learning from the flaws that they had in the past.
100%.
And now we have Rey, New Jedi Order going on the upswing, so we're going back the other direction now, right? So now, and if you're on the train, if you're on the boat, you're seeing the Jedi Order go back up like this again with, like you said, Georgie, all of the lessons that have before, because we already know that Rey's super connected to the other Jedi, so she's gonna have plenty of help through this. Dude, how cool!
And she has
my god, I just thought about it. How cool is it gonna be if we get like Master Soul's voice in like the new Star Wars something? Oh, please give us Master Souls talking
like
to her.
they just need to give. There just needs to be like a bunch of Force cameos, and like if it's in the movie, like all the time. I don't care. Just show us Soul, like Vernestra, like just put her on screen with everybody. Like, I don't know that.
Yeah, because it'd be so cool having her learn. Yeah,
She could
having her
play
literally
Megatron.
learn. Yeah, how literally learning from the High Republic era where we were at our peak, because they were. If not for the
I
Nihil,
would scream in the
the
movie theater if that
galaxy.
happened.
The galaxy's completely different if not for the Path of the Open Hand and then the eventual Nihil and whatever event's going to happen that's going to shake it up again. So it's just like the little things, and getting back to that point I think would be super dope. I would love to see cool lightsabers again and no more Guardian Protocol boring lightsabers on screen.
Yes,
Please.
yes, 100%, 100%. But guys, I think that is it. I want to thank you both for being here. Georgie, I know that it was last minute getting you on here, but thanks for showing up. We had a lot to talk about, a lot of theories, really brain itchers here. We did end on a pretty crazy cliffhanger. It's nice to know that the next episode will be longer and will connect very fluidly with this episode. So looking forward to it. So let's go ahead and go first with Georgie. Now, can you go ahead and let the audience know where they can follow you on social media? What have you been doing for the past few weeks, and any future projects that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so first off, thank you for having me. Like, I know it was last minute, but like I had a ton of fun. I've always wanted to be on a podcast, and it's been such a long time. So like had a great time, and I'm happy to come back whenever you guys need someone. You can find me on Twitter at Baguette Reviews, baguette like the bread. And then everywhere else, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Georgie Writes. For the last 2 weeks, I've been on summer vacation. I'm a college student, and so like I finished finals, and I went to Florida for a week, and I just got back a week ago, and so I've just been like chilling, doing nothing. I'm
Nice.
really excited for it's great. Like I hate school. But I'm so excited for the rest of this series and like Andor all day. I need that like right now. Yeah.
It's gonna be very, very fun. Adrian, what about you?
Yeah, you can find me basically everywhere. I'm mostly on Instagram and TikTok these days at SuperReese93, primarily talking about Star Wars and talking about my favorite lore stuff. But I'm also working on a record. Oh, this way, right here. I'm working on a record cosplay build for Star Wars Celebration 2025. So kind of documenting that process, and it's going pretty well. So see me turn into Wrecker over the course of however long.
Very nice. I did see your video on that as well. Of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter and any and all social media. I have recently started to do some things up on Twitch. So you can find me over there at twitch.tv/Fanboy Clay 10. That's Fanboy Clay 10. So go follow me there. Of course, I am also on Ranger Alliance, where we review Power Rangers, and we are on the Power Rangers Turbo season. So go check us out there.
That's a good
So
one. I love Turbo.
Go check us out there. We just started the season. First 3 episodes are up to for the review. Katie will be back with us next week. She is going to attempt to come back to the show. Of course, motherhood and parental leave has taken the forefront of her life, which it should. So be on the lookout for her next week on episode 5 review. And yeah, guys, thank you guys again for showing up. Thank you guys for listening and lasting this long. But until next time, may the force be with you.
Thank you.